the Schwartz be with you. What a world, what a world.
Open that glove compartment.
You got it.
Wow! Liquid Schwartz!
Quick, pour it in the emergency tank.
Right.
Look at that!
What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken might not always play up to their potential, but they always seem to against the LA Kings for whatever reason, as they beat the Kings to start out the homestand 4-2, powered by Jaden Schwartz, and a fantastic third period once again from Joey Decord. And yeah, it's probably still too little too late as far as actually getting things turned around and back in the playoff picture is concerned for the Kraken, but we're gonna have fun with it anyway. It was a pretty fun game in Seattle. And you know what? Let's just jump right into the game, with the only change in the lineup being Tanev back in for Cartier, back from the illness that kept him out of the last game of the road trip in Winnipeg. And the Kraken, like that game in Winnipeg, get off to a hot start, even faster than we've seen them do in quite a while. At the very least, it seems like they've gotten this whole slow starts to games thing figured out, for now anyway, as they've had 3 pretty good starts to games in a row after having quite a bit of trouble with the first period for quite a while leading into that. Either way, this is their best start to a game in the first few seconds that they've had in a long time, as just 28 seconds in, they're on the board, thanks in no small part to a pretty bad turnover here by one of the best, if not the best, defensive team in the NHL. The Kings turn the puck over just inside their own blue line. Kaapo Kakko picks it up, says, "Thank you very much," takes it out to the far side, or really not even the far side, but he and Schwartz kind of trade places as they work up into the high slot. Then Kakko passes it back over to Schwartz. Schwartz fires off the shot, and it's still from pretty far out. If we're being honest, this is one that Darcy Kuemper really has to have. He leaves just enough of the inside of the post for the puck to slide past him and go off that inside of the post into the net to give Schwartz the early goal, and the Kraken the early lead less than 30 seconds in. That first line does it again. And from there, over the next few minutes, the Kraken aren't really able to build necessarily lasting momentum out of that first goal. It's a pretty back and forth game over the next few minutes, until eventually the Kings the Kings get a straight up gift from the officials, as Matty Beniers heads to the box for a high stick that wasn't his fault at all. A Kings player ends up getting hit in the face while Beniers is next to him, but it's his own teammate's stick that catches him in the face. Beniers goes to the box and just kind of stands at the entrance looking at the Jumbotron while the bench yells at the officials, and you can see pretty easily why they were upset. It's pretty obvious on the replay that they got the wrong call, but at that point it's too late, unless they called it a double minor or a major, which there was no blood and no injury, so they're not going to call either of those. They can't send it to review, so once the call is made, it is what it is. The Kraken go to the penalty kill, and it doesn't take very long for the Kings, of course, just like we saw in the Jets game. When the Kraken took a 1-0 lead, the Jets got a power play off a terrible call, and they capitalized on it quickly. The Kings do the same here. They win the faceoff, a quick passing play up around the outside, down to the side of the net, and then across the face of Decord to a wide open Kempe on the far side. He bangs it home. Really doesn't get all of it, but it still manages to go off of the inside of Decord's leg through the 5-hole and in as he tries to get back across. Not really much of anything he can do about it. The game is tied, unfortunately, for the Kraken, who really did nothing wrong. The Kings just got gifted the goal. Well, okay, they didn't get gifted the goal necessarily, but they got gifted the power play that they quickly scored on. So the Kraken penalty kill plays its part here and just letting the Kings work the puck quickly up to and then across Decord's face for the easy goal, but it's a power play they should have never been on in the first place. And the Kraken, who took that penalty in the offensive end, it probably should have still had the puck in the offensive end. But instead of letting that series of unfortunate events that were, well, partially out of their control anyway, and a series of unfortunate events that they had seen unfold just a couple nights before with a bad call leading to a power play that quickly ties the game, the Kraken don't deflate, which we've seen them do in the past when things start going against them. But no, they respond with some angry play here over the next 1.5 to 2 minutes, really actually the rest of the first period, but especially the next couple of minutes, as if you thought that the bench was angry, you could hear them yelling across the ice throughout the arena. Well, they definitely took that anger from the bench and put it right out on the ice after the penalty kill, where they really didn't do much to stop the Kings from scoring. But as soon as we're back to 5-on-5, about a minute and a half after the Kings tie the game, it's Warren Fogle for the Kings, carrying the puck through the neutral zone and harmlessly into the Kraken end of the ice just across the blue line. It's fairly well defended by the Kraken, so he'll probably just dump it in and go chase after it on the forecheck. Right up until out of nowhere, bang! Josh Mahura puts a shoulder into him and puts him on his butt. He really has no time to react to it. No one saw it coming except for Mahura in the moment, just decides enough is enough, lays a massive open ice hit. Fogle goes from with the puck on his feet to without the puck on his butt. In control and everything's fine to, oh, that's going to hurt tomorrow, and there goes the puck. Standing to sitting, feet to keister. Fogle gets absolutely laid out. I mean, it was such a nice hit from Mahura that I'm pretty sure the Detroit Lions actually called the Kraken bench to see if Mahura could come play the fourth quarter for them. And while they certainly could have used it, unfortunately the flights just didn't really work out, so Mahura stays with the Kraken for the rest of the night, and the Lions... well, too soon? Yeah, that's a tough way to go. Either way, with this hit, Mahura completely separates Fogle from not only his spirit for a second, but also the puck, as Kakko's able to pick it up and take it the other way, or actually get it to Beniers to take the other way. Meanwhile, because of how big of a hit it was, it draws a bit of a crowd. 3 LA Kings players, if you include Fogle himself, who's still collecting his... well, everything after getting hit and put on the ice, they all go to try to rough up Mahura and I guess goad him into a fight to make up for that big hit. Fortunately, Mahura does not take the bait because, oh, look who that is with the puck crossing center ice as they're all distracted with Mahura. That's Matty Beniers with the puck after Kakko passes it to him. He skates in. There is at least one Kings player that is behind all of this, so Beniers has kind of a one-on-one setup, and there's the other guy, the fourth one that it's in the screenshot that I'm not going to include in this since at least he realizes what's going on and tries to get back into the play. He does drop his stick in the process, so this broken 2-on-2 as Schwartz comes up into the play is kind of more just a 2-on-1. Beniers gets the pass across to Schwartz, and he buries it. No chance for Kemper. Schwartz his second of the game, 15th of the season. Assist to Capo and Beniers, but it's Mahura that makes the whole thing happen, and the Kraken retake the lead. As one more time, not only does the hit create the turnover by separating Fogle from the puck among other things, but it's also such a big hit that it draws that crowd of LA players trying to go seek revenge, rather than paying attention to what's actually happening with the puck headed the other way. And again, as you can tell from that screenshot of Schwartz scoring his second of the game, it might have been nice for the Kings to have 2, maybe 3 more players in that shot. I mean, we'll say 2. You can give Fogle maybe the trip to the bench and go try to catch his breath for a second. But the other 2 guys, yeah, maybe should have been back-checking rather than pushing Mahura around in front of the Kraken bench. And then even on top of all that, as we move forward into the rest of the game, this Cam Chancellor impersonation by Mahura here lights a fire under the Kraken's butt as it kind of cooled off Fogle's, and they play a fantastic rest of the first period. They get a couple power plays that both look fairly dangerous. Really, the first one a lot more than the second one. The first one, they get a lot of good movement, get a couple pretty good chances, but just aren't able to score. The second one, a couple more chances, not quite as good, but then into the final seconds, even with the Kraken having everything go their way, against the flow of play with just over a minute left in the period, Jordan Spence shot from way up in the corner by the blue line, finds its way through everyone and past Decord as he kind of has to try to spin 180 to get out to the far side and make a backhand glove save, which he isn't able to do as he was interfered with trying to get from one side of the crease to the other to make that save, which normally would be goaltender interference as it was a Kings player that prevented him from getting across. But it's a good thing that the Kraken, who did consider challenging it, end up not challenging it, I think, is it was pretty clearly pushed into Decord by Montour in front of the net. So unfortunately, Decord just not really able to play his position, but it's the Kraken that kind of forced that to happen. So no goaltender interference. It is a good goal, and we end a first period that the Kraken really outplayed the Kings in, evened up 2-2 off of a power play goal that they should have never had in the first place, and this one that Decord didn't have a chance to get across to make the save on. And against a team as good as the Kings have been so far this season, you kind of figured that they would realize they got a bit outplayed in the first and come out in the second eager to look to reset the tone of the game and start playing more their style. But instead, as we start out the second, just like with the first, it's the Kraken who come out ready to play. Now, they don't score on the first shift of the period like they did in the first, But they do score on the second shift. Towards the end of the shift, it was probably the last thing that this line was going to do before they go off on a change. It's the Chandler-Stevenson line, and it's Stevenson who carries the puck in along the boards on the near side, the side farther away from the benches. And as he crosses the blue line into the offensive end, he quickly finds Burakovsky on the far side, gets the puck to him, and then Burakovsky wastes no time in getting it down to Bjorkstrand, who's coming in along the boards on that far side in front of the Kraken bench. Bjorkstrand gets down right up against the boards, kind of to the outside of the faceoff circle before throwing the puck at the net, where Chandler-Stevenson has just curled from that pass that he made to Burakovsky right up net front, gets a stick on the ice, and tips it perfectly through the 5-hole and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the early second period 3-2 lead. And like, we have had our frustrations with Chandler-Stevenson in particular, but also Andrei Burakovsky. The two of them have had pretty tough seasons so far for the Kraken, and Stevenson especially in the defensive end. But credit where it's due, this line was pretty good tonight. Through the first two periods, they may have been the best line for the Kraken, and that's even including what the Beniers line did there throughout the first period, throughout the first half of the first period, getting the Kraken the first two goals. This Stevenson line had, by the end of the second period, the most expected goals for created, and were somewhere around the rest of the lines, actually a little bit less than a couple of them in expected goals against. I think only the fourth line had fewer expected goals against. Well, actually, the first line also had fewer expected goals against, but they hardly spent any time in their own end of the ice. Especially Beniers was fantastic throughout this game at breaking up plays, lifting sticks, and just stealing the puck from Kings players whenever that line was out on the ice in any kind of defensive effort. I mean, the third period, maybe not quite as much. The whole team spent a lot of time in their end of the ice in the third, as we'll get to. The point is, the Stevenson line produced a lot more offensively through the first two periods than they, did the opposite back the other way, and that has not necessarily been the case for most of the games throughout, especially the last month or so, but really the whole season. Anyway, a fantastic passing play here by that line on the rush. A quick couple passes from one side to the other, and Stevenson having the awareness to get out in front of the net to be available for that tip-in, gets a stick on it and puts it right there through, actually not quite the 5-hole. I think it actually went through the armpit of Kemper, but either way, went through Kemper and into the net to re-get the lead for the Kraken, give the lead back to the Kraken. Either way, the Kraken take the lead here early on in the second, and then just kind of hang on to it the rest of the way. But not the boring, the way the Kings typically like to play the game. Low event, most of the games happen in the neutral zone, hold on to it, and just, lots of defensive play, keeping shots to the outside, that kind of thing. Now the Kraken really do try pretty hard and nearly do extend the lead a couple more times here in the second period. Kemper has to make a couple pretty nice saves, which I'd say made up for that first goal that he lets in that he really probably shouldn't have. Either way, the Kraken aren't able to extend the lead in the second period, and eventually we get to the third where, the Kraken kind of just turtle up and hope for the best, and thankfully Joey Decord played an absolutely out of his mind third period. His best save of the game was the 2-on-0 shorthanded save that he made, but he makes 16 saves on 16 shots here in this third period for the Kings. Meanwhile, the Kraken, I think, had 2, maybe 3 shots here in this third period, and one of them's on the empty net towards the end of it. The Kraken just spend almost the entire third period in their end of the ice, and they do a fantastic job at playing in their end of the ice. They don't really have any defensive breakdowns. The Kings really don't get anything particularly dangerous out of those 16 shots on net. They're pretty much all to the outside. The Kraken keeping the net front fairly clear, and this time not pushing guys into Decord. If they're pushing guys away from the net, it's nice and clean so Decord can see shots coming. He makes all the saves he needs to. It was quite a few of them. As I said, 16 shots for the Kings in this period as they came into it with just 14 in the game, so they over double their shot total in this period alone. But the Kraken, thanks to Decord and some sound defensive play, which has not been a consistent necessarily over this last stretch, are able to get to the point where the Kings pull the goaltender to go empty net and try to tie the game that way. But with the empty net, Schwartz gets the puck on his stick pretty quick, fires it down to the net, and puts it off the post with the chance for the hat trick. And you just kind of knew that even with everything that had gone well in this game, how exciting things have been, Schwartz having the 2 goals in the first period, heck, the first half of the first period, he already had 2 goals. That was probably his chance. They'd change up the lines, pull Schwartz off the ice, and, we just have to stick to that memory of Jordan Eberle scoring the hat trick against the Buffalo Sabres way back in the early part of that inaugural season as the lone Kraken home hat trick. Well, right up until it turns out Jaden Schwartz stays on the ice, and it's just the way the game started. The Kings fumble a puck by a blue line. This time it's the Kraken blue line. It's Fiala, who had a fantastic game, especially the third period. Fiala was the guy that seemed the most interested in tying this game and getting the Kings at least to overtime. But up by the Kraken blue line, he just kind of mishandles the puck, forgets about it behind him. Kakko sees it, so he goes right to it, picks up that turnover, skates it into the neutral zone. Again, says thank you very much to Fiala on the way by, and while he easily could have put this puck into the empty net himself, he knows all too well that Schwartz is looking for that hat trick. He gets it out to the other side with a little bit of a tip on the way, almost a pass that was broken up and a missed empty net chance. But it gets to the other side. Schwartz gets to it just kind of down at the bottom of the faceoff circle and gets it into the empty net past the diving, I don't think it was Fiala, but a diving Kings player. And after having that first one go off the post, while I normally wouldn't spend this much time on an empty netter, this one finds the net to finish off the hat trick, the second ever Kraken hat trick at home. So the hats come flying out onto the ice as Schwartz gets... I'm going to have to stop throwing these hats around if the Kraken start doing this with any kind of regularity. Not that 2 in a season is particularly regular, as a handful of more spoiled fan bases might well realize. The point is, with Schwartz's 16th of the season, team leading 16th of the season, he picks up his third career hat trick, the fourth hat trick in Kraken history, their second of the season, as I said, and second home hat trick to that one that Eberle had against the Sabres way back early on in the inaugural season. And it caps off, pun intended, a fantastic night for the Kraken. The 4-2 win over the Kings, continuing to build off of a really second fantastic, well-played game in a row. I mean, yeah, they won the game in Pittsburgh, but boy, is that a game that it feels like they kind of got away with one. Even their win against Buffalo, also on that road trip, was one it kind of felt like the Sabres helped them along to that win, but they played a fantastic game in Winnipeg that just a couple bad bounces and a bad call, well, one bad bounce in particular and a bad call, turned that what could have been a win into a loss, or at least an overtime point anyway. And now the Kraken come right back home, continue to build off that, and while I don't necessarily know that I'd still say the Kraken played a full 60 minutes, because they do get outshot 16-1, 16-2, or 3 in that third period, they're still able to beat one of the better teams in the NHL, one of the best teams in the division. And while, again, it's probably too little too late as far as trying to get back in the playoff picture, we continue to see a lot of very good signs from the parts of the lineup you want to see them in. Kaapo Kakko picks up 3 assists on all 3 of Schwartz's goals. So that puts him now at 4 goals and 9 assists in 14 games with the Kraken, just 1 assist short of what he had in 30 games with the Rangers. And I know we literally just went over those stats the game before, but he put up 3 assists in this game and almost got to the 4 assists that were the difference that I mentioned there, so I figured an update is probably worth it. If he gets 1 assist in their next game, he will have, in exactly half of the games he played with the Rangers, exactly equaled what he did with them with the Kraken in just 15. So, yeah, things are going pretty well there. Obviously, Jaden Schwartz on the receiving end of a lot of that in this game, though Matty Beniers has been getting it as well, and Beniers got the primary assist on Schwartz's second goal, so he gets a point. And back to Kakko, that is now 12 points for Kaapo Kakko in the last 10 games. Things are going pretty well there, and I mean, we saw a good game out of Stevenson and his line, which has been a somewhat rare sight, so that was also pretty good, and credit where it's due. Like I said, they have kind of been the punching bag here and the scapegoat in a lot of ways for the Kraken struggles, and they played really well in this game. Now, I don't necessarily know that Kraken fans are going to be overly excited to know that Chandler Stevenson did have the most ice time among Kraken forwards in this game, but he did pretty well with it in this particular case. Anyway, though, we close things out with the Kraken 3 stars, as always brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you do want to help decide Kraken 3 stars at the end of every R&R, and this is one where there's a lot of guys that are worthy of it, and certainly a lot more than 3, so some are going to get snubbed. If you want your voice to be heard before the video is recorded and put out there, you can help support a little bit more than you already are by going to link down below in the description and supporting on Patreon as well. With the 3 stars, I think the first one is pretty obvious, right? Jaden Schwartz is the first star. He gets that hat trick. Again, second home hat trick, and the fans probably not ready to be throwing their hats out on the ice. I saw a couple of Winter Classic beanies put up there, and boy, it's a tough loss. Hope it was worth it. I mean, in the excitement of the moment, it's probably worth it. Who am I kidding? Still, maybe bring a cheaper, easier to find replacement hat next time. But fantastic game from Jaden Schwartz. He just happens to be on the receiving end of just more fantastic play from that first line. In particular, the guy who gets the second star in Capo Caco. 3 assists in the game, as I said, pulling ever closer to equaling what he did with the Rangers, and obviously has made the most, especially over these last 10 games, with his chance getting a little bit more time and a higher, bigger role than what he was getting in New York. And then with the third star, this is where it gets pretty tough because there are quite a few guys that you could put in here. Matty Beniers certainly is worthy. I almost want to give Josh Mahura a star just for that hit alone, but I have to admit, I'm having a tough time arguing with, and Patreon agreed, that the official stars, I think, got it right in this one. The third star has to be Joey Decord. If Decord didn't have to pretty much put on a one-man show, I think the Kraken played pretty well defensively in front of him, except for that short-handed 2-on-0 that they allowed. They did pretty well defensively in front of him in the third period. But if it wasn't for how much work he had to do in the third, then I probably would have given it to probably Matty. But yeah, Decord keeps the Kraken in the lead throughout that entire third period. So he's, I think, pretty well earned that third star. A .933 save percentage, 28 saves on 30 shots. Just more fantastic goaltending that the Kraken are getting from Decord. And it this time turns out to be enough for a win. Which, just as a quick aside here on that, the whole Kraken winning thing, kind of amusing, somewhat disrespectful thing that I noticed when I went to go watch the highlight pack after every game, just so I can mostly get the screenshots for these videos. I happened to scroll down and look at some of the comments that were on the NHL one, and I know I said go to the Kraken channel instead of the NHL one, but I happened to click on the NHL one just to see if they had the away broadcast. Anyways, the point is, I scrolled down and found this comment that was just, Kraken win. Which is nice, pretty straightforward. Kraken win, we like to see that. But then the disrespect from Google to put under it, translate to English. I mean, come on. The Kraken haven't been very good this season. They've been largely disappointing, but it hasn't been that bad. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comment section below about this game, who your 3 stars would be. If you'd have a different third star, I think that one, again, could go any number of different ways, so I'd love to hear your thoughts down there. Just, party up it with a hat trick. Even if your head is a little bit cold coming back from the game, I think it was well worth it. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken. 1 p.m., by the way, on Monday. It's a day game, so don't show up at 7 wondering what happened.